All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 or Web Development Technologies class, I've been going through a series of presentations that I'm basing off of the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development Getting Started with the Web series. And so far I've gone through getting started with the web, installing basic software, what will your website look like, dealing with files, HTML basics, and I'm halfway through the CSS basics. So we'll finish that, do the JavaScript basics, publishing your website, and how the web works. Then we're going to go into all of these in detail. So HTML in detail, CSS in detail, JavaScript in detail, web forms in detail, accessibility in detail, tools and testing in detail, server-side website programming in detail, and even look at the further resources. Okay? So I left off last time talking about different types of selectors. And we already mentioned that if you put in the name of a tag, like a p tag, and I should really just take a second here and say, how about this? A list of all HTML tags. It's probably going to push me off. I was going to say to W3 schools. These are the approximately, I've never counted them, but I'm going to guess 50, 60, 100, I don't know, tags that you have available to you in here. So if you wanted to find out more about these, for example, there's your paragraph tag. You can click on there and find out all you ever wanted to know about the paragraph tag. If you need to see that particular URL, there it is. w3schools.com/tags/default.asp. All right. So if I do come in here, and I don't want this to ding, so I'm going to turn that off. If I do come in here and just put in the name of one of those tags, it means select all of them. Well, sometimes you don't want to select everything. Okay. So for instance, let's assume that the first paragraph on this page, just the first paragraph that's on our page. So going back here, and let's pretty this up a little bit. In other words, let me go back into here, and I'm going to remove all this stuff that's here. So I've got those style tags, but they're not doing anything now. Why did I do that? Because remember, it looked like this. Now it looks like this again. So it's much easier for you to read. All right. Let's assume that for just the first paragraph that's on this page, everything that's on that paragraph, we want it to be in uppercase. Are you with me? Hopefully you are. All right. I want just that first paragraph to be uppercase. Now I could manually go in and type it in, but what if it was this big? Would I really want to go back and retype all that in uppercase? And the point is I don't have to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I'm going to go to my first paragraph that's in here. That's this one. This is a paragraph right here. That's this one that's right here. Oops. And I just want to take that paragraph. Okay, and I don't care anymore about making that T bigger. So this just says this is, how about this is, so this is the first paragraph on the home page. And I want that to be in uppercase. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a special thing called an ID in here. And I'm going to set it equal to upper. Just upper. That's just a name I made up. It doesn't mean anything other than it's a name I made up. All right. So I go back into my styles that are up here. And I say, okay, I've got this thing called upper, but it's an ID. We looked at a class before where we used a period. With an ID, you use a hashtag. So I'm saying there for upper, anything that comes with the word upper, I want to use text transform into uppercase. Again, as always, it's much easier to run this and show it to you. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to come back into here, and let's see if this paragraph that's right here, if it changes when I refresh. And you'll notice it's now all in uppercase. All right, so I can take that ID. You should only have one ID. All right, when you have an ID like this, it should only appear once on a page. Let's say that I want this to appear in a bunch of places. In other words, I want my H1 tag and I want a bunch of paragraphs to be in uppercase. Then I don't make them an ID, I make them a class. So a class can appear multiple times on a page. So now I've got a class called upper, and I'm going to say for this H1, I want to say class equals upper. For that first paragraph, again, no longer ID, but class equals upper. And let's just take the last paragraph that's in here, and we'll say class equals upper. Okay, now I'm going to jump back into here. That one was already changed, but let's start here. Will this be uppercase now? Yes, it is. Is this uppercase? Yes, it is. Is that one uppercase? So you see that if you want to change multiple things, you use a class. If you only want to change one on a page, you use an ID. Now, I'm doing this, and believe it or not, I'm doing this in a very, very simplistic way, because there's actually more to it than that. And you can have the same element can have both a class and an ID, or it can have multiple classes. All right, so there's a lot of different ways that you can combine the different things that are in here. So I showed you the ID and I showed you the class. Then we've got in here, let's see. An attribute selector. All right, so it's got in here the elements on a page with the specific attribute. All right, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I don't usually use this one, but I'm going to try it anyway. All right, so I'm going to come back and let's go back into here. And I don't want to transform those anymore, so I'm going to do this. Image source. All right, and I'm going to try this. I don't know if what I'm about to do is going to work or not, but I'm going to say, let's try with 50%. And again, what does that do? It's, as always, if this works, it's going to be much easier to show it to you. So let's see if the width of this changes when I refresh. All right. It's now 50% of the size it was before. Now, I wouldn't have done it in that way because I don't believe you have to put this in there. I think just image would work. All right, I think it'll still work. So let's change it. We'll make it 75% so we can tell whether or not it's actually been changed here. And it has. Now, if we wanted to take up the screen it was taking up before, by default, it takes up 100%. So we can actually go in if we want to do that, and it should work at 100%. Hopefully this is going to look the way it did before. Okay. All right. And then there's these pseudo class selectors. What the heck is a pseudo class selector? Well, notice there's a hover here. So I'm going to use that one. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, hey, when I come in and I hover over any hyperlink, I want its color to be gold. And again, as always, much easier to show you this. So let's go back into here and in here, and let's refresh. Now, See how it gets gold? That's hovering. There are other ones that you can use as well. Will these turn gold? Yes, they do. All right. But there are a bunch of these pseudo classes. Let's see if they're mentioned in here. They just use the one with when you hover. But there's hover, there's visited, there's other ones that we are going to cover later, just so you know. Okay. All right. Now let's see. Here they tell you that we're supposed to use Google Fonts. So let's actually go out and try to do that. All right. Well, I'm going to Google Fonts, which I think is just fonts.google.com. I could be mistaken. Fonts.google.com. And let's find one that's not off the wall, but that really does look a lot different. So there's one, Dancing Script. It's actually got writing in it. So I'm going to click on that. And it says, what do you want to do with this? All right. And I'm just going to grab all of it basically. So I'm going to come in here and say, download family. No, I don't want to do that. There's a better way of doing it than that. Glyphs, Dancing Script. I haven't played with Google Fonts for a while, so bear with me, please. Size, glyphs, about, license, pairings. Well, you see they've got some stuff up here. Select styles. Okay, that's to select which of these you want. Glyphs, which is showing you basically what each one that's in here is going to look like, which each letter. About, which is some stuff about the font itself. License, all right, which says basically it's an open license, meaning you can use it for free. And pairings, which means what does this go with? All right. This looks, for some reason, it's looking different than it did before. I didn't think you had to click download family, but let's see what's in here. So we've got this here, static, bold, medium, yeah, whatever. Let's see, is there anything here in the README? Install the font files you want to use, etc. This is much harder. I'm making it much harder than it actually is. How to use Google Fonts. Let's just grab one of the ones that they have in here. They've got Roboto. And you can do it in two different ways. You can put it into your CSS, or you can put it into your HTML. All right, I'm going to do this way. So I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to put this right up above the line that I currently have. I'm going to only put this on my home page. That's all I'm changing right now. So right up above where I've got this link, I don't need this style tag anymore. That's gone. But right up above my styles line, I'm going to put in this, which basically says I want to use Roboto. Okay. And then I'm told that in the body, I should put in font family Roboto. Now, who cares? I mean, why should you even care about this? Roboto is not a font that comes with your computer. Google Fonts are fonts that you can add and that you can use, and they're free. And as you saw earlier, there's like whatever it was, like 1,052 of them. So I'm going to come into my styles here, and under this font family, I'm going to change that just so it says, I will do it for all pages. That's fine. The only one it's going to show on is this page. So it's Roboto. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go back to my page, and you should see a very big difference on the way this looks. And you see, there it is. That's the Roboto font. So we used another font. Okay. All right. What was the other one that we had in here? Was Dancing Script. I don't know if I can bring that one in or not. All right. But all I'm trying to show you here, and probably not that successfully, is how you can go in and in a very short amount of time, go in and change the font type you're using. All right. You can change, now with font family, we have looked at this, but not in a lot of depth and breadth of coverage. Font family says, okay, what I want is I want to use an open sans font. You'll notice it's in double quotes, and that's because there's a blank space right there. So you must use double quotes. If you don't have open sans on this computer, use a sans serif font. All right. Also notice you've got this here, and at the end you've got this. Those are the way you write comments in a CSS file, not in an HTML file, which I showed you earlier, but in a CSS file. All right. Later we'll talk about what's referred to as the CSS box model. And I'm just going to type in here CSS box model. And there's a lot of different ones that you can grab. I'm going to grab the W3 Schools, which basically says everything that you create on a web page is inside of a box. So if I write in here, this is a sentence. My content would be, this is a sentence. Surrounding that content would be padding. Surrounding that padding would be a border. Surrounding that border would be a margin. Why am I even telling you this? You can choose to put as much or as little meaning none, padding, or border, or margin as you want to in here. Now, the easiest way to show you this is I'm going to put a couple boxes. Literally, I'm going to put a couple boxes on the screen. All right? What do I mean? Well, I'm going to do just what they show right here. I'm going to create these divs. Okay, so again, I'm going to go back. And I'm doing this because I think this is the easiest way of showing this stuff to you. All right. In fact, now that I look at it, I'm at 18 minutes. I'm almost finished. There's not real much to go. But before we do, let's stop this one and we'll pick it up talking about CSS, all about boxes, in just a couple moments.